Chapter 36. Isabella! Avantil's voice called out from the street below. Bach looked down to see their three companions standing below. As long as he lived, and he hoped that would be for far longer than the trip back to Ithanel, he would cherish this time spent with Princess Isabella on the roof of a Nassim grain mill. But now it was time to refocus on the job at hand. Isabella nudged his arm. I can get us back to the ground the same way we came up. With a gesture, they floated down from the roof to the street. Isabella's shiny black boot kicked the dusty road. I hope you three had better luck than we did. We found nothing, save a city on the edge of self-destruction. We did! On Queen Indiria's avenue. We must hurry to the glass foundry. Avantil pumped his fist, a small smile creeping back to his face. Kotarian shrugged. The rich boy insists he spotted some clue. He won't tell me what, but I am inclined to believe him. Avantil hustled back to his horse. By the Exalted One, I will show you. The young noble rode toward the foundry a few blocks over, and the others followed. They arrived at the brick building, which from the outside appeared as silent as every other building on the street. Tovano is in there. I'm certain of it. Avantil slammed his fist into his palm. Isabella squinted through the foundry's darkened window. How can you be so sure? I see nothing out of the ordinary. Avantil took the group to the side door. Because Kotanian and I saw two glass factory workers go inside, dressed for a day's work in a dangerous environment. They wore thick aprons and heavy gloves, exactly the type of thing you would wear if you made glass for a living. Yes, and so? Kotarian wondered. Even in this madness, we have witnessed people attempting to go about their routine lives. If these two are glassmakers, why wouldn't they go to work? Avantil smiled and raised a finger knowingly. Yes, it would be normal to see workers entering a glass-making factory. But I know something you both don't. The Makedi glass foundry closed more than a month ago. Its owners have kept this news a secret, as they are trying to sell the business, and fear that knowledge of their financial hardship would drive down the asking price to sell. Umra raised her thin eyebrows. Yeah, I bet there's two of those folks my barkeep friend Leafy was talking about. Strange folk showing up here in the factory district in recent months, dressed to work but not mingling with the other workers. That actually makes sense, rich boy. How do you know that old bag of bones didn't simply get lost? Tovano is too resourceful for that. Isabella shook her head. He would have found us by now, if he was able. Kotarian shrugged. Well, if we are dealing with Salandrian's jackals, they will have shielded the door with magic. So how do we get inside? Isabella bit her thumbnail as she concentrated. A good question, Kotarian. Umra, I do not suppose there is a servant's entrance here, too. No, your majesty. Most of the workers just go in this door here. But I do have an idea. As you no doubt know, every wagon and cart that leaves a factory like this one must pay a tax to the crown. That's right, Avantil said. The House of Commerce levies a tax on every load of goods made in Imarina. Aye, but this foundry is real old. Centuries ago, places like this here in the seam used to get around paying the tax by sneaking goods through underground tunnels and out of the city. Until one day, the river overflowed after a heavy rain. The tunnels flooded, and over 100 folks died. Even though they were servant class, that was more than could be ignored. That is when Queen Imberia, my ancestor, ordered that Nassim tunnels closed, Isabella interjected. Absolutely, your majesty. But them tunnels is still here. When I lived on the streets, me and my friends used to hide from the constables, and for other purposes I'd rather not mention in noble company. Remind me to tell you about 'em in the days, Buck. We never came down to the tunnels this far down Queen Inderia Avenue, but we may can get inside that way. Avantil threw up an open hand. Slow down, Umra. That's if the entrance hasn't been bricked over, or the tunnel filled in with dirt. One problem at a time, Isabella responded. We must try the tunnels. This may be our only way to save Tovano. Umra took the group to a boarded up brick building down the block. Umar explained that the constables covered the windows and doors with boards, which would get pulled off by people looking to get inside, until the boards went up again. Sometimes folks without homes come here for shelter. As Umar spoke, Bach and Avantil pried back the heavy boards across one of the broken windows. Kotarian begged off from helping. A splinter could impact my ability to cast spells, and then where would you all be? Once they cleared the window, the group crawled through the opening, with Avantil and Umra leading the way into the darkness of the abandoned factory. Isabella and Kotarian spoke lantern spells. Cones of light sprouted from their upturned palms, revealing dozens of wine bottles and piles of discarded rags on the well-worn, dust-coated bricks. The factory floor itself contained no sign of its former use, with anything of value having long disappeared. Spider webs hung everywhere. Bach walked through one and frantically pulled the strand off his face. Squee! A mouse ran by the group to its hiding place between two loose bricks, running across the toe of Isabella's boot on its way. The princess didn't scream or complain, but Bach saw her entire body shudder. Umar ran to the back of the dark factory and yanked up a pile of canvas tarps. We're in luck. The entrance is still here. She pointed to a stack of old planks uncovered when she pulled away the tarps. When Bach pulled the boards away, dozens of roaches scurried across the floor, fleeing the light being cast by the surprised sorcerers. He heaved the boards to the side and revealed an ancient stone hole in the floor of the factory. That dank, rotting odor wafting up from the tunnel nearly knocked Bach to the ground. Kotarian grimaced. By Hadranian's horrifying halitosis! Could you have taken us to a more dreadful place, Umra? I didn't build these tunnels, nor did folk like me want 'em built. No, that would be my ancestors. Or those like them, sadly. Avantil stood in the entrance to the tunnel. Despite the near total darkness, Kotarian and Isabella's spells revealed a small flight of stone steps leading down to a water-covered floor. Must have flooded during the last storm. Doesn't look more than ankle deep, though. We should be able to wade through to the foundry, as long as the tunnel isn't blocked. Then what are we all waiting for? All in! Avantil bounded down the steps and splashing into the fetid water. You heard him. No point in waiting. Isabella gingerly stepped off the stairs and into the water. The algae-coated tunnel was only about 5 feet tall, which wasn't much of a problem for Bach, Isabella, and Umra, but Avantil and Kotarian had to crouch uncomfortably low to avoid banging their heads on the ceiling. The group moved forward as quickly as they could through the narrow darkness. You might want to watch out for snakes. Bach cringed. When he was around 7 summers, he and Yata were playing in a creek when he encountered a cottonmouth viper. Had Yata not scared it off with a stick, he likely would have been bitten. But I can't hide behind my older sister now. We're here. Uber pointed up another set of steps to a boarded-up entrance to the tunnel's roof. Avantil tested the weight of the boards. It's too heavy to lift, and we'll need to move fast in case they hear us. I can move it. Kotarian's hands glowed blue-green. Anything to get us out of this swampy, stinking crypt. Avantil nodded and nocked an arrow. Bach started to draw his sword, but figured his rudimentary magical skills may be of more help than his rudimentary swordsmanship skills. Okay, now, Isabella whispered. Kotarian's spell deftly lifted the heavy wooden cover over the mouth of the tunnel. They carefully stepped out into the basement of the foundry. Stacks of crates filled with jars and bottles stood taller than a man's head, and created a labyrinth leading to the stairs up. Other than a small amount of light coming from the stairwell, the basement was nearly as dark as the shoe factory, and just as unoccupied. Bach exhaled. With any luck, maybe we can get Tovano out without a fight. You obviously have never been a sailor, my friend. Avantil patted Bach on the shoulder. If you were, you wouldn't tempt the gods of fate and luck. Unfortunately, that warning proved prophetic. As they were about to climb out of the basement, a voice behind them cried, Over here! Someone's over here! A man rushed toward them across the dark basement. Bach spotted the distinctive glint of light on metal and heard the unmistakable sound of a blade being drawn from a scabbard. Avantil shot an arrow, which found its mark. The man died instantly, but his momentum carried him into a stack of crates, which crashed to the stone floor. He groaned. If they didn't know we were here before, they certainly do now. Up the stairs! They did as he said, only to find two more guards standing at the top of the stairwell on the foundry's main floor. Intruders! Kill them! One of the guards threw a spear down toward the group. Bach instinctively flinched, but Isabella flicked her wrist and an eldritch ribbon of energy, almost resembling a translucent blue-green hand, snatched the spear from the air and snapped it like a small twig. Avantil then dispatched one of the guards with a second arrow, while Kotarian cast a spell on the other. The man's mouth opened and eyes opened wide. In seconds, he was dead, encased in a thin layer of ice, his body completely frozen solid. Valarian's frigid fatality. I've been waiting for a chance to use that one. Admire your handiwork later, Kotarian. We must go, now. But even in the chaos, Isabella turned to Umra and said, Sweet girl, I need you to stay here. For all your courage, you are neither a warrior nor a sorcerer, and if you are in the battle, I shall be distracted. Will do, your majesty. Now go get them bastards. With the need for subtlety gone, the group raced up the steps and into the main factory floor. There they found the scions of Cenarion waiting. Alandrian stood flanked by two other sorcerers. Two burly guards, swords drawn and shields up, stood between them and the stairwell entry. Oil lanterns ringed the perimeter of the dust-covered floor, casting gloomy shadows on stacked wooden crates and empty work tables. Kotarian's face wrinkled into a snarl when he saw the scions, one tall, gangly young man and the other a short, squat young woman with close-cropped blonde hair. Spalonian, Nerugian, two more traitors. How dare you turn your backs on our country, your house, your siblings? His hands crackled with magical energy. In response, the three scions prepared their first wave of attacks, too. We are the loyalists here, Kotarian. Loyal to Imarinian customs, not to some misguided house that lost its way many years ago, or a royal family that openly carouses with servants. Alandrian practically spat the word servants. You could have joined us, but Salandrian knew you couldn't be trusted. Kotarian rolled his eyes. Join you? You three pretenders are about to get a lesson in magic from the shining light of Imarinia's House of Magic. Kotarian lashed forward with a wave of pure mystical force. At first, it appeared he would overpower the trio of Scion sorcerers, but Elandrian, Spelonian, and Nerugian countered, and not only stopped the momentum of Kotarian's spell, but reversed its momentum, pushing the wave back toward Kotarian. Avantil fired a series of arrows at the trio, but they deflected the shafts, even as they drove Kotarian backward. Isabella turned to Bach. "We need to help him, but first we must deal with the guards. If they catch us casting spells against the Scion sorcerers, they will cut us down." Bach remembered the pyromancy spell that he and Tovano had worked on. Flames danced forth from his hands, but the guards were ready. Their iron shields blocked the blast of fire, which dissipated when Bach's confidence waned. But Isabella kept calm and spoke an incantation as the guards charged her with swords raised over their heads. Lightning shot forth from both her hands. While the guards' metal shields proved an effective defense against fire, they were deadly liability against electricity. Both men dropped to the floor dead, just feet from where Bach, Isabella, and Avantil stood. "Remind me never to argue with you again," Avantil joked. For a split second, Isabella returned his warm gaze for the first time since their dispute, then steeled herself for the remaining battle, which promised to be far more difficult. "They have 3 sorcerers, and we have 3 sorcerers, plus the best archer in Imarina. The odds are in our favor." I'm not truly a sorcerer." "Not yet," Bach offered.
"You are now. Consider it a battlefield promotion. For Imarinia! For King Isbiano!"
Isabella sent a spell of pure magical force toward the trio of Scion sorcerers, who had Kotarian pinned against the foundry's brick wall, his defenses nearly exhausted. The attack threw Elandrian and her co-conspirators off balance, allowing Kotarian to regroup.
"Well, Princess Pretender has joined the fray,"
Elandrian crowed.
"I'm surprised you weren't busy ministering to peasants. That is your favorite pastime, I believe. But if your master was any indication, breaking you won't be a problem. We'll even let your serving-class friends bury you in the royal gardens beside your mother."
Isabella's nostrils flared. A wave of fire, far bigger than the one Bach had been able to conjure, rushed forth and nearly engulfed Elandrian. She barely threw up a mystic shield in time to avoid being incinerated by Isabella's spell. Bach paired off with Spelonian, the tall man, while Kotarian battled the short young woman, Nerugian. Avantil stood back, waiting for his opportunity to strike.
"Eek! Get your hands off me, villain!"
Umra's leather-lunged scream echoed up the stairwell.
"Go help her, Avantil. We can handle these 3.
Bach heard his friend's feet clomp against the foundry's brick floor, but he dared not turn his attention away from the Scion across from him. "You told Isabella you would stand with her until the end." He pushed up his sleeves. "Time to put that promise to the test."